I arrived home from the crematorium to find my living room full of people I hadn't invited. My husband Robert sat in his usual recliner. His sister Patricia perched on the edge of the sofa, her designer purse clutched in her lap. And there, in the wingback chair that had been Catherine's favorite, sat a man in a navy suit I'd never seen before. Jessica. Robert's voice was flat. "This is Mr. Harrison, Mom's attorney." I was still wearing my black dress from the memorial service. My feet ached in heels I hadn't worn in months. I'd spent the last 3 hours shaking hands with people who'd known Catherine for decades, but hadn't visited her once during her illness. "Can I at least sit down?" I asked. Patricia shifted to make room on the sofa, but her movement was reluctant. Everything about her posture screamed impatience. Mr. Harrison opened a leather folder. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry for your loss. Your mother-in-law was a remarkable woman." I wanted to laugh. This man had met Catherine maybe twice in 8 years. I was the one who'd bathed her when she couldn't lift her arms after the stroke. I was the one who'd learned to puree her favorite foods when swallowing became dangerous. I was the one who'd held her hand through every doctor's appointment, every hospital stay, every terrifying moment when the dementia stole another piece of her memory. "Catherine executed this will 8 years ago," Mr. Harrison continued. "Before her first stroke, she was very clear about her wishes. 8 years ago, before I'd quit teaching, before I'd become a full-time caregiver, before I'd sacrificed everything to keep a promise Robert had made but never intended to keep himself." The attorney began reading. Legal language washed over me. Then I heard my name. "To Jessica Thompson, in recognition of her years of service as a caregiver to me, I bequeath the sum of $8,000. Service." The word hit like a slap. "The primary residence at 1847 Maple Grove Avenue, along with all furnishings and household items, shall be divided equally between my son Robert Thompson and my daughter Patricia Chen." I looked at Robert. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom wanted to be fair to both of us," Patricia said. Her voice had that rehearsed quality that told me she'd practiced this speech. "The house is worth almost $400,000. Robert and I need to sell it for our children's futures. My boys need college funds. Your Lily will be there soon enough. Our daughter." Patricia was using our 14-year-old daughter as justification for taking the house I'd lived in for 16 years. "You have 2 weeks, Robert said, still not looking at me, to find a place and move out." Mr. Harrison slid a document across the coffee table, not toward me, toward Robert. "And these," Robert said, pushing the papers in my direction, "are separation papers. Let's be honest, Jess. This hasn't been working for a long time. We can make this clean, amicable. He was kicking me out of my home and ending our marriage, and he wanted it to be amicable." I looked at the papers, looked at Patricia, who was studying her manicure, looked at Mr. Harrison, who was already closing his folder, ready to leave. $8,000, I said quietly. "For 8 years. Mom was generous," Patricia said. "You weren't family. You were—" "I was the one who was there." My voice came out stronger than I expected. "Where were you, Patricia, when your mother couldn't remember how to use a fork? When she woke up screaming because she didn't recognize her own bedroom? When she fell and broke her hip because the dementia made her forget she couldn't walk alone?" Patricia's face flushed. "I have my own family, my own responsibilities." So did I. I stood up. I had a career. I had a life. I gave it all up because Robert promised it would be temporary. Because your mother needed help. Because I loved her. Jessica Robert started. "I'll be out in 2 weeks." I picked up my purse. "Mr. Harrison, I assume you need me to sign something to accept this generous bequest?" He looked uncomfortable. "Not today. I'll send the paperwork." I walked upstairs to the room that had been Catherine's. We'd converted it back to a guest room after she died 2 weeks ago. I'd boxed up her clothes but hadn't touched her personal items. Couldn't bring myself to sort through the photo albums and jewelry boxes yet. My hands were shaking as I opened the closet. Catherine's favorite cardigan still hung there, the blue one she'd worn constantly. I pulled it down and buried my face in it, breathing in the faint scent of her lavender lotion. That's when I saw the music box. It was wooden, hand-carved, with an inlaid pattern of roses. Catherine had kept it on her dresser for as long as I'd known her. I'd dusted it 1,000 times, but had never opened it. She'd always said it contained her most precious memories. I sat on the bed and lifted the lid. The tinkling melody of Clair de Lune filled the room. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small USB drive with a piece of tape labeled, "For Jessica." My heart started pounding. I grabbed my laptop from our bedroom and came back. The USB drive contained 3 files, a video, a PDF, and a folder of scanned documents. I clicked on the video first. Catherine's face filled the screen. She looked thin, tired, but her eyes were clear. This was from before the dementia had really taken hold. Maybe a year and a half ago, when she'd had that period of relative stability. Jessica. Her voice on the recording made my throat tight. If you're watching this, I'm gone, and I suspect things haven't gone the way you expected. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Robert doesn't know about this video. He doesn't know I changed my will. The one Mr. Harrison has is old, from before my first stroke. I kept it that way deliberately because I wanted to see who would show up, who would care. Catherine leaned closer to the camera, her expression fierce. You were the only one, sweetheart. You were the only one who stayed. Robert visited once a month if I was lucky. Patricia called on my birthday. But you put your whole life on hold. You gave up teaching, which I know you loved. You sat with me through every doctor's appointment. You learned how to manage my medications. You held my hand when I was scared. Tears were streaming down my face. The house is yours, Jessica. All of it. The savings accounts, everything. It's in my new will, properly executed, properly witnessed. My real attorney is David Chen. Yes, Patricia's husband. I trusted him to keep it quiet, and he did. His card is in the envelope at the bottom of this box. I fumbled through the music box and found it. A business card for David Chen, attorney at law. You earned this house with 8 years of your life, Catherine continued. Robert chose his career over his mother. Patricia chose her pride over her family. But you chose love. You chose to show up. The house, the savings, all of it goes to you. Don't let them bully you. Don't let them make you feel guilty. You were the daughter I never had, and I want you to have the security you deserve. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. There's something else. Robert's been having an affair. I'm sorry, honey. I saw the text messages on his phone when he left it on my nightstand last year. Some woman from his office. I didn't tell you because you had enough to deal with, taking care of me. But I documented it. Screenshots are in the folder. If he fights you on this, if he tries to claim he deserves half of everything in a divorce, you'll have proof of infidelity. Oregon doesn't require fault for divorce, but it might help if things get ugly. I clicked on the folder. Sure enough, there were dozens of screenshots. Texts from someone named Melissa. Photos. Evidence of a relationship that had been going on for at least 2 years. I love you, Jessica, Catherine said on the video. You gave me dignity in my final years. You never made me feel like a burden. Every person deserves someone like you. I'm just grateful I had you. Don't let them take what's yours. Fight for yourself the way you fought for me. The video ended. I sat there for a long time, holding the USB drive. Then I opened the PDF. It was Catherine's will, dated 18 months earlier, witnessed by David Chen and a notary. Completely legal. Completely binding. The house, the savings accounts totaling $420,000, all of it left to me. Robert and Patricia were specifically excluded, with a note stating, "My son and daughter chose not to participate in my care during my illness. I leave my estate to the person who treated me with love and dignity when I needed it most." I called the number on David Chen's card. "Jessica?" He answered on the second ring. His voice was professional but warm. "I've been expecting your call. You knew." Catherine made me promise not to tell anyone. Not even Patricia. Especially not Patricia. He sighed. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." But Catherine wanted to see how everyone would react. She suspected Robert and Patricia would show their true colors, and apparently she was right. They had another lawyer read a fake will. That was the real will from 8 years ago. Technically valid if there wasn't a newer one, but there is. Mine supersedes it completely. Catherine made sure of that. What do I do now? I file the new will with the probate court. It'll take about a week to process. Then I send official notice to Robert and Patricia. They'll have the right to contest it. But Jessica? The will is airtight. Catherine was of sound mind when she made it. We have video evidence of that. We have witnesses. And if they do contest, we'll make the video public. Catherine specifically gave me permission to do that. She said if her own children wanted to fight her final wishes, the family had a right to know why she made those wishes. She thought of everything. She loved you very much. And she was furious about what Robert and Patricia had become. This was her way of making things right. I spent the next week in a strange limbo. I didn't tell Robert or Patricia about the USB drive. I let them think I was looking for apartments, packing my things. Robert moved into the guest room. We barely spoke. Lily, my daughter, noticed the tension but didn't understand it. She was dealing with her own grief over losing her grandmother, and I didn't want to burden her with adult problems. Then, exactly 1 week after the memorial service, David Chen filed the new will. I was in the kitchen when Robert's phone rang. I watched his face change as he listened, watched the color drain from his cheeks. "That's impossible," he said into the phone. "My mother wouldn't. We already read the will. This is some kind of fraud." He looked at me across the kitchen island. Really looked at me for the first time in weeks. "Did you know about this?" His voice was shaking. "About what?" "My mother apparently made a new will, leaving everything to you." Patricia called 30 seconds later. I could hear her screaming through the phone from across the room. "You manipulated her!" Patricia shouted when she showed up at the house an hour later. "You convinced a sick old woman to sign over her estate. This is elder abuse." I was calm. Calmer than I'd been in years. "I didn't manipulate anyone," I said. "Your mother made her own choices, just like you made yours when you chose not to visit her, when you chose not to call, when you chose to show up only after she died. We have families. We have lives." Patricia was pacing now, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor that would soon be entirely mine. "So did I. I gave mine up. You didn't." Robert was staring at the separation papers, still sitting on the coffee table, unsigned. "This changes things," he said slowly. "No, it doesn't." I picked up the papers. "You wanted a divorce. You'll get one. But we're doing this on my terms now. Jessica, be reasonable." "Reasonable?" I laughed, and it came out bitter. "You handed me divorce papers at your mother's will reading. You tried to kick me out of my home with $8,000 after I gave up 8 years of my life. You don't get to ask me to be reasonable." "We can work this out," he said. "We don't have to divorce. We can go to counseling." I pulled out my own phone and opened the folder of screenshots Catherine had left me. "Who's Melissa?" Robert's face went white. "Catherine knew," I said quietly. "She documented everything, your affair, the lies, all of it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these divorce papers. You're going to accept that this house belongs to me, and you're going to move out. You can't kick me out of my own house. It's not your house. It was never your house. It was Catherine's house, and she left it to me." I stood up. "You have 2 weeks to find a place and move out. Sound familiar?" Patricia was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "You've changed." "No. I just stopped letting you take advantage of me." "We'll fight this," Patricia said. "We'll contest the will. We'll prove she wasn't in her right mind. Go ahead." I picked up my laptop and turned it so they could see the video file. Catherine left a video explaining exactly why she made these choices. She was completely lucid. David Chen will testify to that. The notary will testify to that. And if you want to drag this through court and make Catherine's video public, showing the whole family exactly how little you cared about her in her final years, be my guest. I clicked play. They watched in silence as Catherine explained her decision. Watched as she detailed every visit they'd missed, every phone call they'd forgotten to make, every time they'd chosen convenience over her needs. When it ended, Patricia was crying. Robert looked like he'd been punched. "She really hated us," Patricia whispered. "No," I said. "She loved you. That's why it hurt so much when you abandoned her. That's why she kept hoping you'd show up. You didn't." They left without another word. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. Robert didn't fight it. He moved in with Melissa, the woman he'd been seeing for 2 years. Patricia stopped speaking to me entirely, which was honestly a relief. The hardest part was Lily. She was angry at first, angry at me for divorcing her father, angry at the situation, angry at the world for taking her grandmother away. She didn't understand why I'd kicked her dad out of the house. So I told her the truth. Not all of it, not the details about the affair, but enough. I explained that Grandma Catherine had left me the house, that her father had tried to take it away, that I'd spent 8 years caring for her grandmother while everyone else stayed away. "I didn't know it was that bad," Lily said one night. "We were sitting in the kitchen, drinking hot chocolate the way Catherine used to make it. You were 6 when I stopped teaching, 7 when Grandma had her first stroke. You don't remember what life was like before. Dad never talked about it. Your dad didn't want to think about it. It was easier to pretend everything was fine." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I need you to understand something, sweetheart. I don't regret taking care of Grandma Catherine. I loved her, but I do regret letting your father convince me that I didn't deserve better, that I didn't deserve to be treated like a partner instead of a servant." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Are you going to be okay? Without Dad?" "I'm going to be better than okay. And so are you." I didn't start a charity with Catherine's money. I didn't give it away to feel noble or prove a point. Instead, I invested it carefully. I set up a college fund for Lily. I renovated the house, turning the downstairs guest room into a small classroom. Then I did something I'd been dreaming about for 8 years. I went back to teaching. Not full-time. I wasn't ready for that yet. Instead, I started offering tutoring sessions out of my home, math and reading for elementary school kids who needed extra help. Parents paid what they could afford, and for the families who couldn't afford anything, I worked for free. The house that Catherine left me became a place of learning again. Kids running through the rooms, the sound of laughter echoing off the walls. Everything Catherine had loved about having family around, but without the bitterness of children who'd stopped caring. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Robert called. "How are you?" he asked. "I'm good, really good. Lily says you're teaching again. From home. It's perfect." There was a long pause. "I messed up, Jess." "Yes, you did. I want to be in Lily's life. I want to be a real father to her. Then be one. But you're going to have to earn it. You don't get to walk back in and expect everything to be forgiven because you're sorry." "I know." His voice cracked. "I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try." I thought about Catherine, about the video she'd left, about how she'd given Robert a chance to show up and he'd failed. "You can try," I said, "for Lily's sake. But Robert, I'm not your second chance. I'm not your backup plan. If you want to be part of your daughter's life, it has to be because you love her, not because you regret losing me." "I regret everything." "Then do better. Be better." For Lily, he started showing up for her soccer games, started actually listening when she talked, started being present in a way he never had before, not as my husband, but as her father. It wasn't perfect. Some weeks he forgot. Some weeks he got busy with work and canceled plans. But he was trying, and that was more than he'd done in the 8 years I'd spent caring for his mother. A year after Catherine's death, I invited my own mother to move in with me. Mom and Catherine had never gotten along. Catherine had been cold to her, dismissive, the way mothers-in-law sometimes are when they feel territorial about their sons. Mom had stopped visiting years ago because she couldn't stand Catherine's comments. But Mom was getting older, living alone, struggling with arthritis. "Are you sure?" she asked when I offered. "That house has a lot of memories. That's why I want to fill it with new ones, good ones, with people who actually love each other." Mom moved into the upstairs bedroom, the one that had been Catherine's. We painted it yellow, filled it with plants, made it bright and warm. Everything Catherine would have hated, which somehow made it perfect. "Your mother-in-law would be rolling in her grave," Mom said one day, laughing as she watered the ferns we'd hung by the window. "Maybe, but I think part of her would be happy. She left me this house because she wanted me to have security, to have a place where I could build the life I wanted. That's what I'm doing." Mom hugged me. "You're stronger than I ever was. I learned from watching you raise me alone after Dad left. You taught me that you don't need a man to have a home. You just need love." The house became full in a way it never had been when Robert lived there. Lily and her friends doing homework at the kitchen table. My students filling the classroom with questions and laughter. Mom cooking dinner. the smell of her pot roast filling the whole house. Patricia reached out 2 years after Catherine's death. A simple text, "Can we talk?" We met at a coffee shop downtown. She looked older, tired. The designer purse was gone, replaced with a worn leather bag. "I'm sorry," she said without preamble, "for how I treated you, for how I treated Mom." "Why now?" "My oldest son is going to college next year, and I realized I've spent the last 18 years so busy planning for his future that I forgot to be present in his childhood. I look at photos and half the time I don't even remember being there because I was always thinking about the next thing, the next goal, the next milestone." She stirred her coffee without drinking it. "Mom tried to tell me. She'd call and want to talk, really talk, and I'd rush her off the phone because I had a meeting or a school pickup or a million other things that seemed more important." Patricia looked up at me. "You were right. I chose convenience. And I lost her." "You didn't lose her," I said gently. "You just weren't there for her final years. That was your choice, and it has consequences. But it doesn't erase the years before. When you were a good daughter, does it get easier?" The regret? I don't know. I don't have regrets about Catherine. I was there. I showed up. You'd have to ask Robert about regret. She smiled, sad and small. "He's miserable, you know. The affair ended. Melissa wasn't interested in a real relationship, just the excitement. He's alone now. That's not my problem anymore." "No, I guess it's not." She pushed her coffee away. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. And Mom was right to leave you everything. You earned it. I didn't know what to say to that." After all the anger, all the fighting, Patricia's simple acknowledgement felt strange. "Thank you," I finally said, "for saying that." We didn't become friends. Some bridges burned too thoroughly to rebuild. But we found a kind of peace. She sent Lily birthday gifts, texted occasionally to ask how I was doing. Small gestures that didn't erase the past, but acknowledged it. Robert never remarried. He dated occasionally, but nothing serious. He'd show up at the house for Lily's birthday parties and stand in the living room looking lost, like he couldn't quite figure out how he'd ended up a guest in a home that used to be his. "Do you ever regret divorcing him?" Mom asked me one night. We were sitting on the porch swing, watching Lily and her friends play volleyball in the yard. "No, I regret believing him when he said taking care of Catherine would be temporary. I regret not standing up for myself sooner. But divorcing him? That was the best decision I ever made. Even though you're alone now?" I looked at my mother, at my daughter laughing with her friends, at the lights glowing warm through the windows of my house. My house. "I'm not alone, Mom. I have Lily. I have you. I have my students. I have a home that I built on my own terms. That's not loneliness. That's freedom." Catherine's music box sat on my nightstand now. Sometimes I'd open it just to hear that tinkling melody, to remember the woman who'd given me more than a house. She'd given me permission to value myself, to demand better, to understand that showing up and being present wasn't just about caring for others, but also about caring for yourself. The USB drive was still in the box, tucked safely in tissue paper. I'd watched the video a dozen times in those first few months. Now I didn't need to. I had Catherine's words memorized. "You were the daughter I never had. I'd been someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caregiver. But in losing all those roles, I'd finally become just myself. Jessica, not defined by who I served or who needed me, but by who I chose to be." The house on Maple Grove Avenue became a place where kids learned and grew, where my mother lived out her final years surrounded by love instead of loneliness, where Lily came home from college on breaks and brought friends who marveled at the warm, chaotic, joyful energy. "Your house always smells like cookies," one of Lily's friends said during Thanksgiving her sophomore year. "That's because Mom's always baking," Lily said, grinning at me. Mom's cookies, actually. The recipe she'd taught me, that I was now teaching to Lily. Generations of love passed down through butter and sugar and chocolate chips. Robert came by that Thanksgiving. Divorced, older, softer around the edges. He stood in the kitchen doorway watching us bake, and I saw something like grief in his eyes. "I remember when we used to do this," he said. When Lily was little. No, I corrected gently. I used to do this with Lily. You were always working. He flinched but didn't argue. Couldn't argue. Because it was true. Can I help? He asked instead. Lily looked at me. I nodded. Sure, Dad. You can mix the batter. We stood side by side in the kitchen, 3 generations plus, Robert, making cookies and talking about nothing important. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was something. Acknowledgement. Growth. The understanding that people could fail you and still be worth showing up for, as long as they were willing to do the work. That night, after everyone had left and Mom had gone to bed, and Lily was video chatting with friends in her room, I sat alone in Catherine's chair, the wingback by the window where she used to sit and watch the birds. I opened the music box one more time and listened to the melody. Thank you, I whispered, for everything. The house was quiet around me. My house. My home. Built on the foundation of Catherine's final gift, but filled with my own choices, my own love, my own life. I didn't need Robert's approval. Didn't need Patricia's forgiveness. Didn't need anyone's permission to be happy. I just needed to keep showing up. For myself. For the people I loved. For the life I'd built from the ashes of everything I'd lost. And that, I'd finally learned, was more than enough.